Hey everyone, Tyler here from OpenPython. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about data types. Now, I'll be honest, data type sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is. Whenever Python stores a value, it needs to know what kind of value it's actually dealing with. So is it a piece of text? Is it a whole number, decimal number, or a true-false value? That's essentially what a data type is, Python's way of categorizing information so it knows what operations make sense for that value. So, for example, if I give Python the number 42, Python knows it's a number, and that maths operations can be performed on it. But if I write 42, say, in quotation marks, it's no longer a number, it's text. So even though something looks like a number to us, the quotation marks tell Python to treat it as a string. So that distinction turns out to be really important. This lesson will introduce 4 data types that you'll be using constantly throughout your Python journey. The first is a string, or otherwise known as str. A string is simply text, for example, hello, Alice in quotation marks. All these are strings because they're wrapped in quotation marks. The second type is int. Integers are just whole numbers, so like 42, -10, and 0. No decimal points, just whole numbers. And then the third type is a float. So a float is a number with a decimal point, so like 3.14 or 99.9 here. And finally, we have bool, short for boolean. So booleans can only hold 1 or 2 values, true or false. And that's it. No maybe, no sort of, just true or false. You'll see booleans become much more useful later when we start making decisions inside of our programs. But now you might be wondering why any of this matters. The reason is that Python behaves differently depending on what type of data it's working with. So if you look at this simple example, if I write print 5 plus 3, Python sees 2 numbers, so it performs addition. But now let's try print 5 and 3 set as strings. A lot of beginners will expect this to give 8 as well, but it doesn't. The output is 53. Why? Because these are strings, not numbers. So Python isn't performing maths, it's simply joining 2 pieces of text together. So the important thing is just understanding that Python treats text differently from numbers. Now let's try something else. Let's try printing 5 as a string plus 3. So Python sees a string on one side and an integer on the other. It doesn't know whether you intended text or maths. So rather than guessing, Python raises a type error. And honestly, that's a good thing. So when you see a type error, it's often just Python protecting you from a mistake. One tool that's incredibly useful when you're learning is the type function. So the type function allows you to ask Python what type a value is. Think of it like checking a label on a container. So let's go into the first exercise here. The code is just print and then type 42. Before running it, let's guess what we'll see. So we have 42, no quotation marks, which is a number. But specifically, it has no decimal points, so it's an integer. So we're expecting it to be an integer, which is what it's output down here. Moving to the next exercise, let's try checking a few different values. We've already got the print type for Python up there. Let's do print, side of it type, 14, and then print type true. So before running it, let's predict the answers. So Python is text, type there should be a string. 3.14 contains a decimal point, so it should be a float. And true should be boolean. So let's run it. The output is string, float, bool. Exactly what we would expect. So one thing I want you to get into the habit of doing is using type whenever you're confused about what kind of data you're actually working with. As your programs get larger, it's surprisingly easy to lose track of whether something is a string, number, or boolean. So when something isn't behaving the way you expect, checking the type is often one of the quickest debugging steps you can take. For now, the biggest takeaway from this lesson is that Python cares about what kind of data it's working with. Text, whole numbers, decimal numbers, and true or false values are all stored differently and all behave differently. So anyways, that's it for this lesson. I'll see you guys in the next one.